If the Tennessee Titans are treating this like a preseason game, how should the Cowboys treat it? 877-881-1053, truckwreck.com text line. And hearing that, I heard it from Broadus yesterday, even as I was driving. I've seen it on Twitter a couple different times that the Titans are considering treating this game as if it's a preseason game. Maybe not playing all their best guys, hoping to really take it to the Jags in the final game of the season. And I'm interested in that philosophy on their side of it, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, sometime this week. But the Cowboys, you're in a real weird place. You've now defeated the Eagles.
Yeah.
Without Jalen Hurts, as Joy Taylor's pointed out.
Okay.
You've all
right.
The Eagles fans, they're saying it. They're the ones saying it. So
I mean, did they have that same energy when they defeated the Cooper Rush Cowboys?
It was completely flipped. It was the complete polar opposite in that same vein. The way that I look at this game is you don't have to win it, but it does keep you in the conversation. If you think in any way, shape, or form that the Eagles are going to lose and it gives you an opportunity to take the division and have home field, you got to keep winning. You got to just keep doing that. So if you're the Cowboys, how do you maintain that mental focus this week, even knowing that it's just that small chance, it's a small glimmer of hope? But I think every game shows you that every game kind of gives you that, hey, you can come back from any. Hell, the Mavericks last night, I think I saw that it was from Tim McMahon. Is it 0 for 35?
0 for 13,888, let's say, something like that. When a team in the NBA was down by 9 points with 35 seconds or less. And of course, that is now 1 in 13,000 plus whatever, because the Mavs did that. Again, we'll talk about that here in about 15 minutes.
Oh, for 13,884 in the last 20 seasons. So a glimmer of hope is still a glimmer. Something's there. So if I'm the Cowboys.
But we also can't, if you play it on that situation, then you're ending up in a place where you're playing against probabilities sometimes. And I think that's where people are starting to look at. I understand. Let's lay out the possibilities here. The idea is being you go out and you treat this like normal. You try and win, which we're already seeing on the truckwreck.com text line from the 940. You play to win until Philly clinches. Understand that. But there's also the other mindset, which is, look, man, we've been talking about a dude who has been vying for Defensive Player of the Year and had a little bit of a rough spurt of games because he said that he is worn down in Micah Parsons, right? You're seeing the fatigue and the battle-tested nature of the season taking its toll on the team in some ways, and you would like to get any opportunity to get your team just a little bit fresher for the part of the season that people seem to care about more than anything, which is the playoffs, right? To the point where we had a whole conversation yesterday about why people are not enjoying the regular season more, and it's because there's just so much placed on the Cowboys and the success or the lack thereof in the playoffs that this team has had. So people have staked so much of their emotional capital on the idea of what happens in the playoffs. So you want to give yourself the best opportunity there. For me, I keep coming back to the thought, right, that people have talked about where it's like you want to be playing your best football this time of year. And for me, again, last season, I had such a bad feeling with this team riding the roller coaster towards the end of the season where you would see certain performances of good and you'd see certain performances of bad, and I didn't know which team would show up on any given moment.
Yeah.
And for me, I would like to exercise the demons of being a Jekyll and Hyde team. I would like to be able to see this team come out and be the team that we want them to be consistently. Now, will that ultimately mean that they will definitely come out and do that in the playoffs? I can't say that. But I think that would give me, at least, I think it would give a lot of Cowboys Nation, and I think honestly it would give the team more of confidence in the idea that you can go out and you can beat whoever you need to in the playoffs because you've seen yourself do it consistently, time and time again. We could talk about what consistency means, and part of it is that now you know exactly what you should expect from him, and I think that matters in some ways, regardless of what your opponents are doing.
Yeah, that confidence and consistency, just applies itself to the momentum that you gain.
All right. I seen the big smile come across your face, and I was like, what's going on through this? Maybe I'm making a great point. No, just wanted to bring up
for the record. No, I think your point was fantastic. That was the part I wanted to make a joke on. Okay. For the record, 877-881-1053. Reggie does not believe in momentum.
Not in the way that people use it in sports. No, like
Yes.
obviously it is a literal scientific phenomenon.
But when we use it in sports, it's like you've gained confidence. You're in flow. I think we use flow state as the new word for momentum. You're in flow state. You found your groove.
You know what annoys me
whatever it
about
is.
momentum is we've already taken this tangent.
Mm-hmm.
You can ask 10 people like what they think momentum is, and the definitions that they give you will vary.
Yeah.
Will vary quite a bit. And that's one of my main issues. Is like y'all are not even talking about the same thing consistently.
But you are now doing something well. Stay doing something well. Do the little things each week. That's what if I'm Mike McCarthy this week, I am preaching we still have to maintain those little details that we do throughout the week as we're leading up to Philly, because that's what's going to help you win whenever you go play the next opponent. Whenever you go, it doesn't matter who the opponent is. You can take any opponent lightly and you're going to be in this bad situation because you didn't do those little things. You still might be good enough to defeat them, but if you don't do those little things, you aren't giving yourself the best opportunity, the best chance. So Cowboys heading to, they got Nashville on Thursday, and that's where I think that you continue to maintain we aren't done. You keep getting those guys in that mindset. I appreciate hey, we need some rest. I do trust Mike McCarthy, who I think does a really good job at this. I don't know how much y'all listen to Broadus about this, but when McCarthy talks about the GPS, and everybody's like, does he even know what GPS means? That's how I feel about it. Does he even know, or does he just say the GPS?
Do people know what GPS
means? It sounds like the marijuana. It sounds like he's just saying the GPS. I got the COVID. It's like that's what it feels like. But he pays attention to what these guys are doing. He pays attention to what these guys physically have dealt with throughout the entire week, through their game, how many snaps, how many miles they ran. We were talking with Zach Martin, and he was like, yeah, man, this GPS knows how the max speeds I got up to, and it knows, when I should not be sprinting and when I should be walking slowly. So I think that's one of the things is I trust that he has a good finger on the pulse for that. And if he's going to put his team out there, I don't think it's in a mindset of, hey, we're doing this out of desperation. It's more of a mindset of they need the reps. They need to stay crisp. We have an extended break after this, in that you're going from Thursday to the next Sunday before you play again. So that's another kind of we do get a rest at some point here. But yeah, man, I think that the Cowboys need to approach it with let's win. Let's just win all the rest of the games mentality.
You play to win the game. Hello? No, but seriously, to further your point, I think that this team has done a pretty good job of being quite cautious with the health and safety of their players, right? How many instances can we think about where a player was not brought back as soon as they absolutely could have been from an injury because they were like, we want to make sure that you're at your best capabilities? How many instances have we seen Mike McCarthy have a walkthrough day or something to try and make sure that the team was more fresh? I think that they're always considering this, so I don't know that they are going to go and change the philosophy now simply because we're later in the season and the other team seems to be playing down. I think that this is something that they constantly have, and it does seem like they're in this place where they have a process and they have a thought idea of how they want to try and keep the team fresh, not just over a few week span, but over the entirety of the course of the season.
The other thing too, Reggie, when you get done losing a game, what are the questions each week? The questions throughout the week are, how are you going to fix this? How are you going to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Might as well win the game and then be able to say, okay, we still had some things we need to work on, but we don't have to worry about the fact that we didn't give our best effort. If I'm a player, I don't want to come back next week and have freaking Bobby Belt, Jane Slater, and David Moore asking me questions about what I need to do because I had something happen that's been a trend all season that I haven't been able to break. If I'm Dak, man, I'm looking at it going, I would miss 4 games. I still got numbers I want to meet. Let's go pad these stats. If they're going to treat it as a preseason game, let's go ahead and pad some stats and try and get out there. But I know there are a lot of fans out there. There are a lot of Cowboys fans. We talked about this yesterday. We talked about this before that are jaded.
Sure.
And they are looking at if the Cowboys don't go out there and do a Vikings game and beat them 40-3, then they're like, this is the same old Cowboys team. They can't beat a preseason Tennessee Titans team. Why did they even show up? If I'm the coaches, am I trying to expand my playbook this week? Or am I trying to say, you know what, we're going to keep it as vanilla as possible and hope we come out with a victory in this one?
That might be the place in which you go a little preseason on this. Because, yeah, I do think that in some ways you want to keep things in your back pocket. So if you're playing a team where you know that you might not need to go 100% in order to beat them, you might, while still operating in a place where you're trying to execute well, you might kind of ramp that down a little bit, while still obviously having those plays in your playbook. Maybe not put everything on film, but also we have to consider this is a team that is trying to integrate T.Y. Hilton. This is a team that is trying to make sure that Tyron Smith is at his best at right tackle, as he's playing a position he hasn't played quite literally in a decade, right? Like, trying to make sure that all these things gel. I think that there's some, some value to making sure that all those things work together and giving it maximum amount of reps in this environment that you can't replicate. You don't replicate game reps.
Yeah.
Like, there's not anything that,
absolutely right,
that exists in that same way. So I do think that there are other things that they have to consider in addition to that. Plus, I mean, hell, playing Deron Bland on the outside on the boundary, which, look, man, he looked phenomenal. They put him out there. Look, I got to apologize. Deron Bland, I was not familiar with your game. I thought you was all inside. I didn't know that you had it on the boundary. Apparently he does, right?
I wish I'd have told you, because when I was watching him at camp, I was like, dude, and that's when I started my campaign for Deron Bland, but I wish I had told you a little more about what he could do.
So, like, him on the boundary oh my goodness, I was about to say my man who they brought up from the practice squad to play on the interior.
Sherwin?
No, I'll look up his name because it really is a shame that I've forgotten his name that quickly. But yes, having Alexander. Yeah. Having these guys form together like Voltron and get even better at their craft, I think matters in trying to develop that consistency.